Hey guys, I'm doing something a little bit different today. With the Fallout 2287 server changing to a Metro themed server over the last few days, almost the last week now, actually, of me recording this video here. I've spent quite a bit of time working on the Metro themed map for the server, and there were a lot of people just kind of asking me if I would show it off a little bit so they could see what I've been working on and maybe talk about some challenges and things that I ran into because a couple of them were a little bit interested in making their own maps. So they figured it could be a valuable thing for them to just go through and watch this video. So I have a lot of free time at the moment, so I figured I would just run through it for a little bit and just show you what I've worked on. Um, I do apologize if I cut the video at certain points. I am currently sick, so I might just get some brain fog and just kind of forget what I want to say and things like that. So just bear with me there. Um, but let's just jump into this and take a look at the map. So what we're looking at right here currently is one of the metro stations on the surface. The map that I'm making is going to be a fully explorable surface with a completely stocked up tunnel down below, and I'll show how I made the tunnel and everything. It's a little bit janky, but I think there's a couple of cool applications for it. Um, but this is the station. So if I just scroll forward, you can see the stairs leading down. There are a couple of little things like this poking out that I still need to fix. Um, I'm just using these big generic blocks right now just to get the general shape of things. But if we just keep going down the stairs here, we'll line up in the metro. Now, you will see a lot of floating objects, and that's because I was using a Chernobyl pack on the workshop, which had rails on it. Um, the pack itself has become corrupt or something, so on the workshop, it's actually just completely unusable. So I had to remove the dependency a couple days ago because it actually wouldn't even let me upload the map to the workshop with the GUID from the Chernobyl pack. So that's been taken out. One of the modders in the modding Discord that I'm a part of walked me through it. So shout out to you, Scorch, if you're watching this. Greatly appreciate that. Um, but we also have another guy in the server there just working on the models for the track. So as soon as that is done, I'll be able to just go into my prefab editor and put the tracks back in all of these because every tunnel that I've made here is just a prefab. So I'm just sticking them together like Lego bricks. So fixing all that's going to be very, very easy. The tunnel itself was made just with a concrete pipe that I scaled up 14 times so that it can fit a person in here. So if I were to click play, for example, you can see it's pretty massive, honestly. The tracks themselves are going to be roughly right where I'm standing here and roughly where I'm standing right here. Um, and we're also going to be working on some models for some train cars so that you can hop inside of them and things like that. Keep in mind, these tunnels are going to be a lot darker. In fact, they already are a lot darker. I'll show that in just a couple of minutes. But just for the sake of showing you what things look like and for my sake of editing, it's just better not to have the darkness turned on. Some of these tunnels are going to have little areas like this. So these just little service stations, little service tunnels. So if you just walk through them, there'll be different themes. So the theme in here is going to be water treatment. We also have a substation, which is going to be on the other side of the map. I'll show that off as well because I've got that in here. There's also some laboratories, some medical facilities. There's going to be pubs and markets. And these little stations here, or sorry, these little tunnels here, are just going to be ways for the player to bypass certain checkpoints that might be set up in the main metro itself. Because the way I was describing it to some people the other day was when you have someone over here, let's just jump all the way back to where we just were. If you have someone in these tunnels right here, and they're holding, let's say, this zone here, this is a junction. If they're holding this junction right here, and you try to get through, they might not let you. So you've essentially turned the map into a 2D plane because there's no way for them to actually push forward. These little service tunnels over there are going to let them bypass this whole side of the map, and they get to go all the way around under this road to the area over here, which is going to have another station accessible to the surface, so they can hop up there and go out if they need to. All of these tunnels are also going to have these right here, these little manholes that lead down to the sewers. So there's nothing in here just yet, just an empty void. But if you look down here, you can see that we have the tunnels below, and then we have the road up here. So I made that intentionally. I didn't want the road to be too close to the tunnel because I wanted this to go down and sit just above the metro itself, so that I can have little sewers for people to run through and little like electrical kind of maintenance tunnels for people to go through from, let's say, this side of the map to the other side without ever actually being in the main metro. I think something like that's going to open up a lot of interesting opportunities for players to kind of spread out a bit more, because a concern that a lot of people had originally was if there are, let's say, 3 or 4 factions holding down checkpoints along this metro line, they've cut off huge sections of the map to people. So I'm going to have a lot of these sewers here just for people to get through quite easily, which is why I've built this road using these concrete blocks. So if you kind of look at the screen, you can see the little blocks are being highlighted one at a time. And that's just because if I were to select a bunch of them and move them, it's just individual concrete walls that I'm using, and I think some stairs in some areas, so that if I want to add something like this over here, I can just scroll all the way over, grab this, slide it back like that, and then put the manhole right there. So it takes a little bit more time than just making a terrain mask that most people would do, and then just kind of sit it on top of the main terrain. That's kind of the solution a lot of people would have found, which could have worked. One of my concerns was, of course, being able to edit it like that, but also for players who are in the GM mode, we were discussing some of the problems that could happen having stations like this and metro tunnels, because for people who are as a GM, you can't go below the terrain. It's just not going to work. But if you have objects like this, you see the camera can go all the way down. I'm not going to lie, it is a little bit complicated getting things down into the tunnel here. There's a bit of a multi-step process. And that's just because... Oops, just clicked by accident. You can see it's just trying to snap to a different area. So like if I click here, it's gonna be floating. But it's not that bad, because once you hold Alt on the keyboard, I don't know what it is on the console, you get that little ghost figure and you can snap it just right down here. So there is a little bit of a weird learning curve to putting things down here, but I feel like once people get the hang of it, it's not going to be that terrible. The actual map itself is not very big. I was doing some calculations, and it is less than half the size of Everon, so you can see the size of a Jeep right here. So if I zoom all the way out, you can see there's a Jeep right there. So it's not a terribly big map. I figured this won't be that big of an issue because it is going to be like 2 maps stacked on top of each other with the metro. And the nice thing about this being a custom map that I'm working on is if we need to add more things to the map, I can really easily do that. In fact, I do have a second terrain already prefabbed and ready to go. If we put this into the server and it is not able to accommodate 128 players, I can just remove this terrain, insert terrain number two, and it's twice the size of this one. One thing that I will need to do at that point is build out the surface even more. But one of the other things that I've been telling people is with these tunnels being modular and with me having the prefabs for all of them, if we need more tunnels, if we need just more space down below, I can just copy paste those prefabs throughout this entire map here and essentially double the length of the metro within a day or two. It's going to be super, super easy. I think for the size right now, it should be okay because I will have multiple points of interest, so people won't always be piling up in the same area. So, like for example, this here is Polis, so this is going to be the main station. It looks pretty terrible on the outside, but keep in mind again, there will be a road and a city over top of all of this. I'm going to be signifying where the main stations are by the apartment buildings, the 12-story apartments that I have from the Eastern European pack over here. Um, but Polis here, this is the main station, pretty huge. Again, missing my tracks at the moment, but we will get that sorted out soon enough. Um, there's also some broken materials right there, and the reason for that is I am working on the station map. So there's going to be physical maps at every station indicating where you are and where other stations are. I've already tested it a day or two ago, and it works amazingly. I'm just adding more stations as of recording this video, so I didn't want to commit and put the map up onto this wall just yet, knowing that there's going to be more information added to it very shortly. Um, but Polis is kind of cool because over here, this is one of the train depots. And what I've done is I've turned this essentially into like a training ground for factions to do their basic training if they choose to. There's also this little fight area here that someone was asking for with some stands for people to watch. So this is kind of like the combat area of the safe zone because I figure what we were discussing is Polis will be like the safe space for the map, kind of like how Montanak generally is on the Everon maps for nearly any server. But over here is where factions can do war games. If they have basic training they want to do, I have the obstacle course for new recruits. In the back corner here, I have targets for people to shoot if they want to, just to test out guns, because there will be weapon modding that you can do on your weapons. I think that's actually already a feature in the Metro server. I've been building this, so I haven't actually checked it out yet. But if you want to check out how some of your attachments and things work, you can just come over to the Polis shooting grounds here, and you'd be good to go. There's a couple of hidden rooms and facilities throughout the map that I don't want to really show off because I think it'd just be fun for people to run into. Um, but a couple of the public rooms I will show off will be this basic room that I will spice up a bit later. This is the diplomacy room. So this is where factions can meet up and discuss things in the safety of Polis Station. There'll be the Polis faction likely just keeping things nice and secure. Through this door here, we have the little market. Again, I will spice up the market a little bit. Someone had a really good idea to use like those train maps to make advertisements. So I can put some of them over these little market stalls here. Just, advertising things like medications, guns, and whatever. We also have a little pub here. There will be additional pubs throughout the metro, and I have been kind of spitballing the idea that pubs will be zones that'll heal you. So if you walk into the pub, there is a trigger that will go off, and you'll start to slowly gain your health. It's not like a god mode or anything, so if someone walked up and shot you, you would die in the pub. But if you've been out fighting, um, if you were injured in any way, just go hang out at the pub for 5-10 minutes with some people, and you should be good to go. We also have this little area back here for adults only, just for the ambience. There's always going to be a district like that. At least I know in Metro Last Light there is. So I kind of want to bring some notable locations in here. On top of Polis is going to be the library. Um, so this area right here is going to be the library. Just a massive point of interest for people to hang out at. Another point of interest over here is the botanical gardens. Um, Again, these are just kind of loose kind of interpretations of what they actually are, just with limitations of the engine, limitations of time, space, assets, and things like that. But I think the variation in the terrain up on the top will be kind of nice for some people. There's also going to be this little bridge here for people to hang out at. This is a military base over here that I'm going to be working on. And then these rooms here are going to be train depots. So I'm kind of thinking these will be the MOBs for the factions. Um, they're pretty large already. They have a lot of space. They're kind of bugged right now because I haven't really been focusing too much on the depots. But I figured this will be a nice way for people to have everything they need spawned in this large little kind of warehouse here, the garage. It'll make it easier for the GMs to spawn things as well because the assets will snap to the bottom of the warehouse here. And they're not going to be fighting in the tunnels there trying to get like an arsenal set down for someone. One thing people are concerned about is if I spawned in this MOB and I walked through into the tunnel like this, there might be someone over here or someone over here ready to shoot me. That's something I've thought about as well. So again, this roof is a modular roof up here, so I can just slide this concrete block over, and I will be putting more little sewer exits here for people to jump up to the surface, and then they can walk to either a different sewer or just go in through one of the main stations. There's not a ton more I can show here, just because it's kind of small. I haven't worked on a ton of things. This room here is the substation that I've been working on. So this is going to be another point of interest for people to fight inside of. But yeah, the tunnel's pretty large. They expand quite a bit. And the expansion aspect, again, will be kind of huge. Because I do have all of this area over here that I can still work on. So I can add a lot more to the metro. I'm going to show off what it looks like with the cave lighting turned on. So this was probably the biggest hurdle I ran into so far, was getting the lighting set up, because what I learned about the infusion engine essentially is if you don't have something called a probe, or I think calling it an environment probe, place in a location, the brightest your map will ever get is going to be right here where the direct sun is, and the darkest will be wherever the shadow is. There's really nowhere else it'll go in terms of the values. So you'll notice in some of these buildings, yeah, you have these circles here. These are probes, which are essentially just creating the fake lighting inside here. So I spent a lot of time tweaking the cave light. I don't want to spoil it just yet, but I'll turn it on. You can see nothing here has changed. But when I load up my GM mode and I walk back down to the tunnel that I showed earlier, it's pitch black. And you'll notice my screen is going blurry there. And that's because I've put a hitbox into the surface. So if you don't have a gas mask on, you will slowly die. I've tweaked the damage so it only downs you first like this. Because my hope is if you walk out to the top and you're already injured and it downs you right away, your buddy can drag you below so that you can get the healing you need to put your mask on and go back to the surface. Completely forgot about that. But we're gonna run down very quickly here. You can see it is absolutely pitch black. And I like this because it is pretty realistic that the light would blind you when you have it contrasted with how dark it is down here. But if I turn the flashlight on, the probe will receive light. So you are more than capable of navigating and seeing things around here. A lot of these stations are going to be a little bit empty in terms of like the lighting, but I am working on adding more lights to all of these stations. There are some areas that do already have lighting. You will notice that shimmer of light over there that I'm chasing right now. That's just kind of one of the lighting issues with Infusion. I've noticed for some reason at large distances, you will still see the sunlight regardless of the probe. But you're not really going to be able to notice that a lot of the time when the actual map gets officially released, because there's going to be so much clutter and things in these tunnels. You're not going to see that far down the tunnel generally. So those lighting glitches aren't going to be as noticeable. I am also going to just kind of work on ways to figure out if I can remove that, or at least limit it a little bit, because it can be a little bit distracting following it. But it is what it is. I do want to find one of the areas I've worked on that has lighting inside. I believe the substation has lighting. So we're just going to jump down there because I just want to show off that the lighting does work. Yeah. So I made some custom ceiling lights for the Metro. So it's up there with the little green hue. It does make a significant difference. I know it's still a little dark right here. I am going to also have things like lamps and fires for people. But we do want it to be a little bit spooky. I am also working on audio at the moment, so when you're down the tunnels, you'll hear things like mice scurrying around. You'll hear things like drips, echoes, clanking metal, maybe some disembodied voices from some certain dark ones, maybe. There's a couple of things I'm working on to make the tunnels a lot more ambient. Um, but yeah, that's basically all I wanted to show for right now. I might just wrap things up here with just a quick little stroll through some of these dark tunnels. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, I'll show you some of the ambience of these tunnels. So these service tunnels like this are going to have no lights other than these indicator lights. So if I turn it off, it is very hard to see. I didn't want it to be totally pitch black just for like balancing and just gameplay purposes. I don't think it'd be that fair, but like it's pretty dark. If I'm laying over here in the corner and someone runs by, if they're not paying attention, they're not going to see me. But I love the ambience here. Yeah, I'm honestly really a big fan of how this looks. Another area that I quite like is going to be over here, I believe. Is this it? It's going to be a little flooded service tunnel area. Ah, yes, this is it right here. I might put lights in here as well. I'm not quite sure yet. But it's just a big kind of like sewer. If I jump down, I'm in the water here. Pretty deep. You can adjust your height a little bit, so if someone is running by again, you can just kind of sit right here next to it. Don't move and hope they don't notice you. But yeah, the ambience is something I'm very proud of. I spent probably a day just getting this lighting working in here. Um, so pretty happy with it. I like a lot of the details in these tunnels. The prefab editor has saved my life. Just being able to look at something and think, ah, that looks a little bit too empty. I can jump into the prefab editor, add some pipes there or something, and just kind of spice things up a little bit. Keep running over here. This is the water treatment facility that I showed off earlier. This is how it looks in the dark. One of the guys in the server was really excited about a fishing mod that he found where you can actually like use a fishing rod on bodies of water to collect fish. So I made this little lake in here pretty deep. You'll notice the lighting there is a little bit wonky in the water like that, so I do apologize. I'm working on that as well, but yeah, I think it's gonna be kind of cool for him to fish in here, and to run back to the stations and trade it. A lot of cool things, a lot of cool stuff. I'm also going to be working on that I haven't showed off just yet, things I haven't mentioned. But yeah, the map is coming along quite nicely. Not too many roadblocks that we've run into yet. Just the corrupt mod with like the broken tracks and everything. The lighting was a pain in the ass to work with. But other than that, nothing else has been terribly complicated. This has been a pretty cool little experience here getting this to work. But yeah, that's all I wanted to show. Not gonna be a super long video, just like a really kind of rambly little showcase to let people know what I've been working on, let people see what I've been working on. A lot of cool new things that are gonna be coming pretty soon. So yeah, that's everything. I appreciate you guys for watching this. Thank you as always. Talk to you later.